Hello everyone, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Good thinking and fresh projections have brought upon us and indeed the world's economy new realities and new numbers. We bring you the stories that appropriately position these and explain the fresh numbers. Many other realities and related stories are trending and we bring them to you on the authentic perspective. Good to have you join us. My name is Akin Agbejile. This is Oil and Gas Forum.
We've received intervention, but not as huge or as large as this. All we can say, well done, NNPC.
The more than 600 NNPC retail stations across the country fully comply with the PPPRA's directive, neither selling below 123 naira 50 kobo per litre nor above 125 naira per litre in its stations. NNPC assures of availability of petroleum products with Petroleum Products Marketing Company holding more than 2.6 billion litres of petrol. The NNPC commends industry unions and associations that have ensured hitch-free supply and distribution of petroleum products across the country. The corporation is collaborating with stakeholders in the power sector to ensure availability of gas to guarantee steady supply of power during the lockdown period and beyond. Maintain social distancing. Stay safe. Announcer Dr. Kenny Obateru, Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, NNPC.
The federal government has expressed its readiness to align with the outcome of the 10 million barrels per day curtailment in crude oil production supply, as recommended by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timipre Silva, made this known after participating in the recent 10th extraordinary OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial meeting, which held through a virtual meeting.
OPEC and OPEC Plus agreed to cut 9.7 million barrels of crude oil from the supply side. America was also, the U.S. was also very magnanimous. They accepted to take another 300,000 barrels on behalf of Mexico, which brings the total cut to 10 million barrels. This is an unprecedented move, and we believe that this will help to stabilize crude oil prices.
Chief Silva stated that as a committed member of OPEC, Nigeria has agreed and will join the OPEC Plus to cut supply as part of measures to shore up prices. In his remarks, the Secretary General of OPEC, Dr. Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo, said the OPEC and OPEC Plus declaration of cooperation was apt in the face of glut in supply despite the global reduction in consumption of petroleum products.
Coming back to the oil market, it has completely upended market supply and demand fundamentals since we last met in Vienna on the 6th of March. The expected excess supply volumes on the market, particularly in the second quarter, are beyond anything we have seen before. Our industry, Mr. Chairman, is hemorrhaging. No one has been able to stem the bleeding.
Meanwhile, OPEC has released its April monthly oil market report with a slash in crude oil forecast, dropping with 7 million barrels per day to average 22.9 million barrels per day in 2020. The report stated that the drop was due to the fall in demand as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, which has impacted the global economy. The OPEC April report indicated that economic indicators showed that in 2019, global economic growth stood at 2.9% against the 1.1% economic contraction that will be recorded in 2020. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timipre Silva, has handed over 5 ambulances to Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Chairman of the Presidential Task Force for the Control of Coronavirus COVID-19, Boss Mustafa. The ambulances marked the first installment of industry collective donation of 11 billion naira, now shored up to 21 billion naira. ITO Exploration and Production Company Limited, an NNPC joint venture company partner, donated the ambulances. Handing over the ambulances to Mustafa, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources stated at the ceremony that the prevailing time was far from being normal, saying it was a time that called for collective efforts.
The oil industry, under the leadership of NNPC, has come together to contribute their quota to the solution of the problem of COVID-19.
Responding, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mustafa, applauded the NNPC and the entire oil and gas industry for the maximum support extended to the federal government in the campaign against the pandemic.
We are eternally grateful to these organizations and their partners for bringing this. And I believe that in the next 2 weeks, we will come here and look at it and ensure that it is fit for use.
Conducting the two top government officials round the 190-bed facility donated by the petroleum industry. Malam Kyari stated that this day dome, Abuja, that would house the bed spaces was donated by yet another of NNPC partners, the Sahara Group. He said other NNPC's partners, local and international, continue to implement projects capable of lasting impact in their host communities as well as across the nation's geographical zone, describing the feat as a hallmark of good corporate citizenship.
SGF is here to make spot assessment of the status of this facility, which is going to house 190 beds, and it's being supported by, particularly by CECC, the construction company that we all know, and also supported by the industry, the private sector, the energy group, and all of us to make sure that this works.
At an NNPC property in Utako district of Abuja, Malam Kyari announced that the corporation had set aside a 60-bed capacity facility for the property to support the fight against the pandemic. The NNPC GMD said the facility located in the heart of Abuja will equally be ready in the next 2 weeks. He explained that the Utako facility will be equipped with oxygen generating plants, ventilators, and other medical logistics that will support the federal government's ongoing fight against the spread of coronavirus pandemic, saying that it has 10 intensive care units that will serve as backup to the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital Isolation Unit in Gwagwalada.
The wing that will accommodate the COVID patient will be ready in 2 weeks. So that means that we can actually accommodate up to 60 people in this place in addition to what you have just seen.
The Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation NNPC said it was partnering with the Transmission Company of Nigeria to stabilize power supply to Nigerians. Group Managing Director of NNPC, Malam Kyari, made this submission after a parley with stakeholders in the power sector.
We have actually increased gas supply to power, and that means that there will be significant improvement in power generation in all the federal government and associated power facilities, and it will also mean that Nigerians will have better access to power during this period and going forward.
Malam Kyari said that the NNPC team was in the Ministry of Power to inform the minister that in the last 1 or 2 months, and particularly during the COVID-19 period, the corporation has increased gas supply to the power sector. According to him, there will be significant improvement in power generation in all federal government and associated power facilities. On his part, the managing director of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Usman Mohammed, said that the meeting was to ensure that there was a constant supply of power as directed by President Muhammadu Buhari.
With this meeting that has taken place, we believe that we are going to have more steady and more sustainable power supply going forward.
The Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation NNPC has enjoined its workforce to observe in totality all coronavirus medical protocol of staying at home, observing personal hygiene, and maintaining social distancing, amongst others, in order to overcome the pandemic. Group Managing Director of NNPC, Malam Kyari, and top management of the corporation made this known during a virtual town hall meeting with staff held to discuss the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown on the corporation's operations and staff who are currently working remotely from their homes.
These are very tough times for all of us. We must refocus and rebase our expectations, even with our communities and with our families, because things are tough, things are very, very difficult. and we need to work together as a team so that we can navigate through this very, very obviously difficult situation, managing our health and managing our revenues. Both of them they speak to each other, and we'll manage both of them.
In his submission, the Chief Operating Officer Upstream, Engineer Adeyemi Adetunji, said the corporation had explored the opportunities inherent in the challenges by ensuring a reduction in the cost of production, assuring that all the corporation's upstream subsidiaries would maximize every available opportunity in the current situation to shore up revenue.
We did not see any negative impact on production. In fact, we recorded some spikes in production to about 2.3 million barrels per day, in the week towards the April 9 OPEC meeting.
On his part, the Chief Operating Officer, Gas and Power, Engineer Yusuf Usman, said with resilience, the NNPC has been able to supply sufficient gas to all power plants in the country.
Gas and Power is responding to the challenge, and we are making best endeavor to ensure that the gas flows and generate power into homes.
Speaking on the rehabilitation of the corporation's refineries, the Chief Operating Officer, Refineries and Petrochemical, Engineer Mustafa Yakubu, maintained that all the modalities for the rehabilitation projects were ongoing.
If you are able to bring the refinery up and running to 90% capacity utilizations, you just have to put in place a hybrid ownership structure.
The Chief Financial Officer of the NNPC, Mr. Omar Ajia, said despite the lockdown, the corporation was committed to auditing its accounts between June and July 2020.
Many of our colleagues, even though they are at home, but I know they have been working day in, day out to try to meet the requirements of our external auditors to have the 2019 accounts of the group as well as the SBUs audited on or before mid-year, which is a target we have signed up with the board.
Engineer Farouk Said, who is the Chief Operating Officer, Corporate Services, urged staff to always keep safe and maintain all the medical protocol for the overall safety of the corporation and the country.
Our business must respond to these challenges if we are to survive and come out stronger. And I think the GMD has alluded to that. Where you have issues like this, there are also opportunities.
For the downstream operations of the company, Ms. Laurentia Ndupu, who was represented by the Managing Director of the Petroleum Products Marketing Company, Musa Lawan, assured that the NNPC has ensured sufficient supply and distribution of petroleum products across the country despite the restriction of movement in some states.
In downstream, in spite of COVID challenge, I reiterate that we continue to make sure that there is availability and supply of products across the nation.
Chief Operating Officer, Ventures and Business Development, Roland Ewubare, who was represented by the Managing Director of NNPC Medical Services Limited, Dr. Mohamed Zango, said through the leadership provided by the GMD, the oil and gas industry was able to make industry-wide medical intervention whose impact was already being felt.
It's time for us to synergize and it's time for us to partner. We will definitely come out of this stronger and ready to deliver our mandate.
High point of the meeting was Malam Kyari's response to some of the questions posed to top management by members of staff who participated in the virtual town hall meeting.
They've really touched so many people's lives in positive ways.
They really touched my life in many positive ways.
The impression I got from NNPC after the competition is the fact that it's a good one and it should be encouraged.
NNPC is an organization that is sincerely, genuinely interested in improving the lives of young people in many positive ways through investing in their intellectual capacity, investing in their education.
NNPC, we touch your lives in many positive ways.
You're welcome to another enlightening feedback segment of the program. My name is Julia Auta. A gas cylinder is a canister that stores liquefied petroleum gas, which we use in our homes and eateries for cooking. On today's edition, our roving camera is asking the public a very important question. How would you know when your gas cylinder has expired? And we equally bring you expert perspective on how you can easily identify a gas cylinder that needs replacements.
I can't find any place that is written in the cylinder gas. So honestly, I don't know.
Does cylinder expire? I didn't even know that. So
I don't know that the gas cylinder or have expiring dates. That is the truth about it.
I haven't really taken notice whether it expires or not. So I don't know. I wouldn't know.
I don't get the idea. I don't even know whether the gas cylinder has expiring date or not.
But would actually just like to know when exactly the best before of a cylinder is and how to dispose of it after use.
It's simple. First is that if your cylinder does not have its country of origin, its date of manufacture, embossed on it, please go and throw away that cylinder. That cylinder is substandard. Now, if it has such information embossed on it, just calculate from the date of manufacture, 15 years. Once it is 15 years, you need to replace that cylinder.
The original cylinder, you will find it has expiry date on it. But the way you will know the expiry date, it is not written like as in other ingredients that they will put so date of January 20 this. It's done in quarter. Quarter 1 is A, quarter 2 is B, quarter 3 is C, and then October to December is usually D. They don't write down the complete year. So on a cylinder, if you say on the neck, if you look around, you will see it engraved D20, meaning that this cylinder will expire from October to December of 2020. That is one aspect. Then the other aspect is it is engraved. The cylinders, it is engraved. There are those fake cylinders you will see. Instead of having it engraved on the neck, you will see they write the same D20, but this time around it's written in paint. So once it is written in paint, you should know it's a fake cylinder.
Do yourself good by checking your gas cylinder from time to time to ascertain if it is still good for use. And that's all we have for you today on this segment. Please stay with us for the other segments of the program.
Hello, thanks for joining us on this segment. My name is Faith Ayuba. Did you know that on the 17th February 1958, the first cargo of Nigeria's crude oil was exported aboard SSH Mephiusis? Did you know that the sole concession right granted to Shell was reviewed in 1959 and exploration rights were then granted to other companies? Did you know that with the successful entry of new oil and gas players, the country's daily crude oil production at the dawn of independence stood at 17,000 barrels, 3 times the original production level in 1958? Nigeria's crude oil production received a further boost with the advent of offshore production in 1964 on the Okan offshore field in the then Midwestern region, now Edo and Delta states. Did you also know that in 1965, the first refinery was built in Port Harcourt by Shell with an initial capacity of 38,000 barrels per day, which was later upgraded to 60,000 barrels per day? Now you know. Please keep watching.
Hello and welcome to Global Crude Oil Outlook. Oil prices rose after sharp losses in the previous session, with investors hoping that a big build-up in U.S. inventories may mean producers have little option but to deepen output cuts as the coronavirus pandemic ravages demand. Brent crude was up $1.15 or 4.2%, at $28.84 per barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate WTI was also up 33 cents or 1.7% at $20.20 per barrel. Brent is headed for a weekly fall of around 8% and WTI of 11%. With official data showing US inventories surging the most on record, US West Texas Intermediate WTI fell on Wednesday to its lowest since February 2002, while Brent fell by more than 6%. Analysts believe that oil prices must remain depressed to force short-ins among non-OPEC producers such as the United States, where a lot of production is unprofitable at current prices. Energy Information Administration data showed large U.S. refined fuels stocks build despite refiners operating at 69% of capacity nationwide, the lowest since September 2008. The stockpile figures followed a report from the International Energy Agency (IEA) that forecast oil demand would fall by 29 million barrels per day in April to the lowest in 25 years and to just below 30% of pre-coronavirus global demand levels. The projected demand loss is far more than the 9.7 million barrels per day output cuts agreed by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries (OPEC) and allied producers, including Russia. Hoped for cuts of another 10 million barrels per day from other countries, including the United States, could lower production by 20 million barrels per day. Although some analysts have questioned that number, some countries have also committed to increasing purchases of oil for their strategic stockpiles, but there are limits to how much oil can be bought and the extent of global coordination. Thanks for watching. I am Owigo Okolo.
Federal government should continue doing the good work, and NNPC also should continue doing the good work. We are happy.
My brother, my sister, make we join the hand to stop pipeline and vandalization. They know they allow government to build the road, hospital, provide light, build the school, and make Nigeria be like big country. Make we dey fight the pipeline and vandalization. Make our country come better for we and we children. Now me and you go stop this wahala. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Make our country come better for we and we children. Make we dey fight this yama yama, fight this yama yama. Make our country come better for we and we children.
This message now from Public Affairs Division of NNPC.
That's been the package. Did you know that the preventive medication for COVID-19 is free and easy? Hand washing, social distancing, staying at home, that's how to be safe. Have a safe week ahead.